you patriots out there. Welcome to Teresa America's News and Views. James Delingpole, a libertarian conservative online journalist, was recently interviewed by Roger Hedgcock on the Roger Hedgcock Show on his new book, which is called Watermelons, the Green Movement's True Colors. He has denounced the so-called scientific consensus about global warming. In a recent article called Communitarianism is a freedom-hating totalitarian philosophy like any other, James Delingpole briefly defines communitarianism and outlines why he believes that it is at least as dangerous as Nazism, Marxism, and fascism. I will post his article below on Teresa America, along with a couple of videos on Agenda 21. Here's the interview with James Delingpole.
Okay, now look, a book out. The title is Watermelons. The author is James Delingpole. He wrote a book, actually this started with a post at the Daily Telegraph back in November of 2009 at the blog there called ClimateGate. And that ClimateGate post led to the whole unraveling of the fakery of climate change. So back to James Delingpole and his new book on this subject. James Delingpole, welcome to the program.
Very good to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
I was talking the other day about the tar sands in Canada, in Alberta, and the fact that the Canadians are running into activists, obviously, as we do here, determined to stop the successful mining of the tar sands for recoverable oil. And it turned out that the top 100 of them were actually funded by the Saudis, who are terrified that Canada and the United States might actually discover that we have more oil in Canada and the United States than the Saudis do.
Yeah.
Can you verify any of this?
I think this is very plausible in much the same way that the Russian gas companies are very likely putting money into funding the opposition to shale gas, of which, for example, Poland is abundant. It's abundant in America too. The shale gas revolution could actually save us all. It's relatively cheap, it's abundant, and it's fairly clean. The environmental movement is radically opposed to this, as are the traditional power companies like the Saudis with their oil and the Russians with their gas. They want the monopoly, in a sense, in power sources. The green movement meanwhile, wants wind farms. They want renewables. They want solar panels. The reason they want them is because they are essentially anti-capitalist. And there's nothing they like more than a kind of a form of power generation which can only survive with massive government subsidizing, i.e. funding by the taxpayer.
Let me just explore that for a minute. Are you really saying that environmental activists we see on the tube all the time and in various op-ed pieces and various speeches and conferences and symposia around the country, that they might in fact be paid agents of foreign powers?
I suppose absolutely. Of course there's bound to be some truth in that. I don't think there's anything sinister beyond the fact that what corporations do is try and maximize their profits, and often they do so by exploiting government regulation. So the governments and corporations all around the world work hand in hand against people like you and me, i.e. against the consumer, against free individuals, against small businesses. Yeah, it's a stitch-up job. It's the political class and the corporate class against the little man, the guy who's trying to earn a living.
Now, talking a little bit about your book, Watermelons, because you imply with that, I mean, it's like the old idea that an African-American in our country could be an Oreo, that is to say, black on the outside but white on the inside, white values and so forth. Are you suggesting in this title, Watermelons, that the environmentalists are green on the outside but communist red on the inside?
That's exactly it. And I wouldn't just say communist red. I'd also say, the fascist movement and the Nazis, they had a lot more in common with communism than the two sides make out. So I'm talking about the red, not just for communism, but for totalitarianism. And, trust me, the war against totalitarianism didn't end when we defeated Nazism, when we defeated Stalinism. This is totalitarianism by a different means. It's totalitarianism, I suppose, through what you might call communitarianism, the idea that we the experts, are doing all this with your consent for your own good. So we're destroying the economy for your own good because, we need to make the world a better place. And the only way we can do that is by bombing Western industrial civilization back to the Dark Ages. Well, the point of my book is that I dispute this message. I dispute the idea that we need to increase regulation and increase taxes in order to save the environment. Actually, if you look at capitalism, as societies get richer, so they have more money to spend on environmental causes. Not until they reach a certain point of per capita income do they have the money to set aside for making the rivers clean and so on. So capitalism is good for the environment, not bad for it.
And with the known fact that totalitarian states are typically the ones where the pollution is the worst, how is it that the environmentalists have been successful in the United States of selling a lot of people in this country, maybe even a majority, that raising taxes, curtailing personal liberties, and destroying the economy is a price we should pay for having cleaner air and not offending Mother Gaia? How did that happen?
I'll tell you why, Roger, because with Nazism and communism and Stalinism, the enemy was plain in view. We knew these were the bad guys. The evil genius of the modern green movement is that it has been able to advance very left-wing causes under a kind of cloak of ecological righteousness. Mom sitting at home doing the dishes, she's been persuaded that, by using eco-friendly washing powder or whatever, she's doing her bit for nature. She's saving the baby polar bears from drowning on the melting ice floes, etc., etc. Don't forget the way our children are propagandized. I was in a hotel last night, and on my bed was this leaflet talking about how the hotel was going to help save the rainforest. When I go and stay in a hotel, I don't want to save the rainforest. I want to stay in a hotel. I want to be given good service. I don't want to be co-opted in some environmentalist cause, which may be scientifically dubious.
Well, now, what are you against rainforests? I don't know. James Delingpole with us. James, rainforests are good places.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one of the great mistakes of the great evils of the modern green movement is that it has managed to paint in its propaganda message its portrait of a world divided between two classes of people. On the one hand, there are the caring people from Greenpeace who just want to save the planet. That's all they want to do, make the world a better place. On the other hand, evil, cackling capitalists with cigars in their mouths and dollar signs on their pinstripe suits, and they're driving their 4x4s. And all they want to do is destroy the environment. Well, I'm sorry, this doesn't relate at all to my own experience of the world, and I don't think other people's experience of the world either. I love going for country walks in unsport countryside. Nobody looks at a beach and thinks to themselves, hey, you know what would really improve that beach? If only it were covered with a giant oil slick, with a drowning, with a dying sea.
James, I'm going to have to run. Let me recommend the book Watermelons. James Delingpole and his book Watermelons is out. Again, another broadside and well received and well deserved to the so-called environmentalist movement. Back after this.